just love it when videos open up with a quote? Well, let's just hop right into this blunder of an idea that went nowhere fast. Hello, fellow struggling mediocre internet artist. Does anyone remember that second Fallout content rant video I made and where I teased a comic at the end bits of it? Now, you might be thinking, well, maybe a few in your back are, whatever happened to it?
Trash!
Well, it's canned. Cancelled. No longer a thing even, and not just because of the Leo Convoy bullcrap that happened a couple of years ago.
Peaches, pull my cock.
This truly was a case of nothing ever happens, and that's what stopped it in its tracks. Now, I could jump into the reasons right now, but that would ruin the whole build-up of what this whole thing was going to be about. How things were all set up and could have gone somewhere, what ideas our group had and came up with during the time making / writing all this.
Disappointment.
In retrospect, we had some ideas that were really hit and miss and felt more like,
what would we do if we wrote Fallout and not Bethesda?
So let's get into the main write-up of what the story for Bonds was going to be. My recall might be a bit fuzzy, but here we go. Fallout Bonds begins around the events of Fallout 4. The main character was a combat engineer named Carter J. Williams. He and a bunch of other troops were sent out of an Enclave base in Chicago for a Pacific mission. The Enclave is trying to gather any scattered forces and tech they've been working on post/pre-war and is sending out small teams of troops to set up relay signals and recover tech that could give them an advantage against their enemies, like the NCR or Brotherhood of Steel. There would have been a scene where Carter and a couple power armor troops would have boarded a vertibird and be sent to Nevada. Yes, New Vegas, cause nostalgia. When the vertibird arrived, it would have cut the two members of the Boomers testing out a rocket launcher they recently fixed up. Once they fire it, the rocket would conveniently hit Carter's vertibird and the crew would crash land, killing the two main crewmates with only Carter and his iBot Shelby to survive. This is the only time in the script I mentioned the iBot. To do a trick on foot to a small bunker the whole team was supposed to set up base for their mission, Carter opens up the bunker and finds an old dusty Mr. Gutsy in there. He would have been completely out of it due to being alone for all these years. His name was Hummington. He wasn't going to be violent, more of a comic relief character. In retrospect, we didn't do that much with him. After Carter sets up in the bunker, he would have set off to scout the area, only to face sniper rifle fire from NCR Ranger at distance, breaking some parts of his armor. For some reason, he'd be wearing a suit of MK2 armor from Fallout 3 at the time. Not really a smart idea to do in NCR patrol areas. He dives behind a boulder and would have found a way to contact the sniper via the suit's radio, telling him that he meant no harm. When both met, there would have been some tension, because why would you trust a rando in a tank suit? But after the two realized they're not going to shoot each other, things calmed down. Carter would go under the ruse that he was just some guy who was skilled in mechanics, and since nobody in the West Coast has seen a modern Enclave suit before, she would chill out. The Ranger was another major character called Ruby. She had a habit of messing up, and that's why she was stationed all the way out here instead of Hoover or the Strip. She would tell him directions to Vegas, and after Carter head back to his bunker, she would report to NCR higher-ups to be on the lookout for a guy in a strange set of armor, because for all she knows, it could really just be a Brotherhood guy in a unique set of armor. Eventually, Carter makes his way to Vegas and finds out about the NCR still being there, because in this timeline, House would win, but the NCR is still lightly in the area because of a deal made about Hoover Dam and power. Carter finds out the NCR is recruiting locals into their military and thinks it'd be a good idea to spy on one of the Enclave's biggest threats next to the Brotherhood by quote-unquote joining them. There would be a boot camp segment with a training montage. Carter gets sent out on some missions afterwards and meets up with Ruby again in some of them. One of them had Carter and Ruby settle a scuffle that the NCR was having with a small arms-dealing caravan tied to an original faction in the comic, also introducing another one of the main characters named Roy, a chill guy with a cowboy duster fit. Roy and the arms dealers are a part of the United, basically a more productive version of Freedom faction from Stalker. They were like chill but didn't do fuck all. They're all going to be a little relevant later. Anyways, later on, with Carter being a combat engineer from the Enclave, someone would eventually find out about his connection. So, during repairs, we have Colonel Royez, yes, that one boss from Lonesome Row with the best set of T-45 ever in a series. Well, he'd be the first one to notice Carter's skills for repairs, because he's the only guy in the NCR to date with a set of working power armor.
Well, pre-Fallout show, and not one of the salvaged ones, it's just fancy plate armor.
Anyways, with suspicion of Carter going around and his skills with energy weapons and mechanics, NCR higher-ups would have found out about him being in the Enclave, so he gets locked up. But Ruby would have made a case for him since why would he actively be working with the NCR for so long? So he'd go along with it, and this would lead to him being on a high watch rather than being in a holding facility with Bubba.
I'm feeling romantic.
Disgusting!
This would lead into the second part of the first arc, where we would introduce the Legion into the comic with a character known as Sarpe. The whole shtick with him is that the Legion fell back from Vegas, and since it takes place when Fallout 4 is happening by 6 years, the Legion is sending scouting parties from Colorado to the Vegas area, and Sarpe would be one of the main Centurions leading one of these groups. He believed that the Legion was holding itself back, and a more modern take on the Roman LARP was needed. Thanks to a Legion spy, we find out about Carter being a party enclave and the tech he possibly has, which gives him the idea of mugging the geek when he least expects it. Sarpe wouldn't be doing it though. He'd pay off some thugs in 3-side to steal Carter's Pip-Boy off him so he could lay low. Carter would have chased a thug that snatched his Pip-Boy off him, but it would have been too late. It was already gone, leading the Carter to lose it and beat the crap out of the thug until he gives him the name of Sarpe, what he vaguely looks like. Carter would try to report this, but to no avail because it's the NCR police in Fallout New Vegas. And the Securitrons weren't going to help him. They're just strip guards, so Mr. Patriot over here has just let them mope about it. Ruby would eventually hear about Sarpe from Carter as they're hanging out, and coincidentally it would have been dropped that Sarpe is her ex, and is the reason she almost lost her job as an NCR Ranger.
What a twist!
Insert a flashback scene where Sarpe is in NCR Ruby, and he covers for her, standing outside of an armory, leading to Sarpe to steal a handful of weapons and a suit of T-51 armor.
God damn it!
Leading Ruby to get scolded by her higher-ups and stationed at some random outpost in the Mojave so she didn't screw up anything important. The both of them try reporting this again, but since the two don't have any proof besides their own hearsay, Carter and Ruby would have to find where Sarpe is hiding out and get his Pip-Boy back. Only to find that the classified files in it were gone, specifically the codes to Area 51. Sarpe had them and was planning to take whatever weapons that were locked inside there for the Legion in hopes of giving them the upper hand when trying to take Vegas again. So with this, Carter and Ruby would get the help of the arms dealers from earlier. You know, the United that I mentioned? Anyway, there would have been a standoff at Area 51, with Legion troops getting shot down left and right, and this whole set piece where Carter and Sarpe were fighting out in both of their power armors. Since Sarpe was way more experienced at hand-to-hand combat than Carter was, he'd get the upper hand, seeming like he would win by crushing his head in with his little metal boots, until Ruby shot him with a 50 BMG to the back of her head.
That's it.
We weren't really sure if we wanted to keep Sarpe alive for later on in the comic. Like, I don't know, maybe losing his standing with the Legion, becoming like a local crime boss in Freeside or Westside. Yeah, anyway, back on track. Carter and the gang stop Sarpe and his troops, with Carter making sure the old Air Force base stays locked up, with a small bit in the end where the West Coast Brotherhood of Steel finds out about the relay signal that Carter set up at the beginning of the comic, and they have a panic attack, making them move out of Lost Hills Bunker to the Big Mountain.
Penis.
They find a way to hack into the security systems of Big Mountain to gain control of the robots there, giving them protection while they stay around the think tank, and vice versa, they're fiddling with
this
Big
lore dump in retrospect is fucking boring, man.
Later on, NCR high-ups would assemble a task force to go to Big MT and investigate what's causing all this chaos. Cut to Carter, Ruby, and Roy in the back of a transport truck, only get shelled by the X-7 artillery and ambushed by a bunch of robots. First, we cut to Carter and Ruby looking for some cover. In the distance, there'd be some bodies in the background in hazmat suits, foreshadowing a new group that's introduced in this arc. As Carter dashes into the maintenance tunnel and slams the door behind him, the two would find more people in these hazmat suits, alive this time. These were the Reborn, made by Sergeant Dirtbag. This faction would focus on people that believe that the FEV was another step in humanity's evolution. They'd be ran by a psyker that used to be with the Uni for the first game named, okay, we forgot, so we're just gonna go with Quentin for this one. Anyways, he gained telekinetic powers and an extended lifespan for the FEV instead of becoming a super mutant. And over time, realizing the flaws of the Master's plan, he knew that FEV could do so much more than, well, turning you into a knockoff orc from 40k. Whoa! But instead of forcing this idea on the people, the Reborn were more voluntary. They wouldn't experiment on anyone human. Other background lore was that their main base was an abandoned West Deck building in Idaho. It did have 3 small vials of later stage FEV, The problem is that they didn't know how to make more of it, so that's why they're in Big Mountain. And here we be introduced to the main Reborn squad. Jack, who was the average Joe squad leader, Tags, the young hothead who probably had a psycho addiction, Clicks, a cyborg who wanted his left arm and eye back, and he didn't talk all that much, he was the group's main hacker, and Janet, a Nightkin super mutant who joined in hopes of becoming human again, a gentle giant type of character. At first, the two groups would have been hostile with each other, with a little Mexican standoff scene, but later on, Carter and Ruby would have met with Quentin and gotten the faction's whole backstory, though both of them would still be suspicious for a while. There was also another character in the comic that would appear named Ivy, a big MT scientist who worked on the spore carriers in X-22, and experimented on herself to survive all these years. In a nutshell, she was a sentient spore carrier that looked human unless she got exposed to the sun. Then she'd become a plant monster. Ew. She would join the gang later on to help drive out the Brotherhood, because Big MT was basically her home, along with eventually helping out the Reborn perfect their strand of FEV. The main villain of this arc would have been a cyborg Brotherhood of Steel paladin with a stealth field power armor. At the end bits where the gang got all back together, they would have raided the think tank with the help of Dr. Mobius, disabling all the security robots. Also, Skynet from Fallout 2 was there. I think he just wanted to sort more data or something, and that's why he was there. Nostalgia. Once at the think tank, there would have been a whole scene where the Reborn was getting their asses handed to them by the Paladin. Jack would have gotten knocked out first by a bitch slap, Tags would have found a way to knock down the Paladin and bagged up his face with two 10mm SMGs, only for him to get headbutted and breaking the gas mask visor he had, and later on in the fight, breaking both of his arms. Clicks would try to run in and punch him with his metal arm, only to get it ripped off and used against him, like, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?" kinda like that. Janet would have been the only one to get a few hits on him, but during the raid on the think tank, the place would have caught fire. The Paladin was making a distraction so that the other Brotherhood members could escape, so he turns on his stealth field and just walks away. While at the end of this arc, Big MT would have been under NCR's control, it would have cut to the Brotherhood again, with the East Coast meeting with the West Coast, establishing that they would be a major threat in the future. And that's about it for all the majorly developed arcs. And to get out of the way, here's a montage of the other arcs we had in mind, but never got the round of fully fleshing out.
Bitch.
The third arc would have had the gang going to assist a faction called the Texas Republic, who were dealing with what was left of the Legion. There would be two splinter factions of the Legion, a more modernized one led by Vulpes and a traditionalist one led by Lanius. There also would have been this agreement that the NCR wouldn't take any established land from the Texas Republic, blah blah blah. Yeah, you can tell that Richard McFreeberg was made behind this arc idea.
Oh boy, am I gonna enjoy talking about this guy later!
Also, there would have been a scene at the end where some Enclave remnants would have tried to assault the Republic, only to get caught and publicly executed. Again, Retro's idea, not mine. And right at the end, Carter would have been called in by the faction's leader, Warden, who confronts him about being from the Enclave too, which led to him questioning his morals at the end. Okay, moving on. Nuka World Vacation Arc. It would have been about a year or two when Carter got the vertebra that crashed at the beginning all fixed up, and the main cast finally get some time off. This would have been just the characters chilling in a liberated Nuka World with a small character development, so it was legit just a beach episode. Also at the end, the Predator would have been spotted and everyone had to get out of the park, blah blah blah, foreshadowing. Moving on to the next arc. Modern Appalachia Arc. Carter finds a mention on his bunker's terminal, claiming to be from White Springs Bunker. Carter's never heard of this branch of the Enclave before, so he and Ruby would investigate. During their time in Appalachia, new characters would have been introduced, explaining what's happened ever since 2102, yada yada yada. Carter would have eventually encountered the Appalachia Enclave, but they wouldn't have been the original Enclave, just descendants of Vault 76's military personnel, because, well, the original Enclave in Appalachia is dead. Modus gets to meet Carter and tricks him into reconnecting him to the main Chicago Enclave, and that kicks off the last arc. Another one that Retro helped out with, but a little less this time. The Enclave Election Arc. The Enclave finds out that Carter is still alive, so they kidnap him and Ruby and take them to their base in Alaska. Yeah, Anchorage, Alaska. Later on, we did want to change it to Michigan and then Alaska, but we didn't really get too far into that part.
Michigan!
So at first, the Enclave thinks that Carter is a deserter for being with the NCR for so long. Carter brings up the original plan that he had of joining NCR for espionage, and one of the higher-ups does bring up that he brought the Appalachian Enclave back online. However, they're still suspicious of him. So being disarmed, Carter and Ruby would have been allowed to roam the base, which was an underground vault city. You know, like the one from that old Fallout movie that never happened. The main problem is that they and all the vault dwellers that were there before the Enclave took over the place were under constant surveillance. The whole final arc was going to be focusing on what the Enclave was going to do next, along with this whole election part 2, who was going to be the next president. That being either Fallout 3's Colonel Autumn, who would have been a little bit more older now, and the last original character for the comic. An old British dude in a cyber wheelchair and life support system that apparently funded the Enclave's tech before the Great War. I'm pretty sure you know who made that character.
I'm in a wheelchair!
There would have been this conspiracy with the votes being rigged and this big final fight with Mr. T in wheelchairs over here and how he was going to make the Enclave into some... because... big star circle in the flag.
Cancer.
Also something about presenting the USA with Garden of Eden creation kit missiles. In retrospect, I don't know if that's just stupid, or stupidly over the top and funny. At the end of this all, there would have been a big old fight scene where Carter was in a souped-up version of the MK2 with some cool-ass jet wings, and the Brick Bong was in some giant golden XO1 suit or something. Also, earlier on, Roy would have appeared in this arc too. Like, it was later in the comic and he had his own vertebra as well, like one of the Fallout 4 ones. Like, yeah, let's just keep in mind, how the fuck did he even know where the Enclave were?
I tuned in this episode.
Blah blah blah, Big Bad's dead, blah blah blah, Autumn's the president now, there would have been some deal with the Enclave partnering with the NCR, and in reality, it was just another CIA shadow government deal, history repeating itself. And then it would have ended with Carter and Ruby in the future being in Roy's faction, the United, after they left the NCR for being massively corrupted, and ending with the beginning of the NCR BOS war.
Well, that was a load of shit. Shit.
Digging in your butt.
What? In retrospect, all these arcs just felt like ideas that we had, or in some cases, only existing to set up another arc. Like, the modern Appalachia one only existed to answer a question that nobody asked, along with setting up the ending arc. Same for the Nuka World one, that was just meant to set up the BOS war. If we ever started work on Fallout Bonds, it would have been a fanfiction train wreck. The first arc would have been too drawn out, location and characters were there mostly for fan service. Not to mention the details are left out of the recap, like Roy getting to be in charge of Vegas for a while because he waltzed right into Lucky 38 and found out that Mr.House was dying because somebody 6 opened his stasis pod.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Along with the boomers spreading out and taking back Vault 34 due to having a biofuel monopoly, since cars were going to be more common in Vegas by now. Not to mention all the plot conveniences too, like Carter just being allowed to walk away from an NCR ranger with orders to shoot any metallic mugs on sight. Now let's talk about the real juicy bits on why this all never really happened. I didn't let people really do or add much to the comic and thought I could do most of the art all by myself. Not really a good idea when you're a wagey. Hey, you want to know something really embarrassing and funny? You want to know how long it took for you to finish this ref of Carter over here? 6 months.
What a sick joke!
What a sick joke! What a sick joke! What a sick joke! What a sick joke!
Sure, we did have a couple other artists on it, but I never really gave them any other direction than just draw some concept art and, like, not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but we did have one guy on it, and he said he was going to draw some construction-themed combat vehicles for the modern Appalachia arc, but he didn't.
I know what kind of man you are.
Fish.
This shit was ass. This was dog water. So ass. Looking at it now, nothing happened, and it was a good thing.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I gotta talk about Nigel the Freakbird's involvement.
Talking about
Well, when me and the guys were making this video script, we remembered that he was just insistent on making the main characters self-inserts. Like there's a difference of adding a little bit of yourself and experiences into a character, and then there's just straight up bullshit. Like making yourself the leader of a libertarian faction in Texas and acting like an authority figure. So, Freebird, how's your little Sonic comic coming along? Or are you still having gay fights with Sonic fags on Twitter?
Get a job, Hurricane.
Well, to say that Fallout Bonds would have been ass is kind of an understatement, but it's just the truth, because it really did just feel like, what if we wrote the next Fallout kind of shit? But instead of getting America Rising, we got For the Enclave. You know, that one Fallout New Vegas mod that said,
well, the Enclave were the good guys.
But it had none of the enjoyable cheesiness or Dordan motherfucking Jr. You know, the best thing about that mod next to the Splinter faction that had the cool power armor paint job. And thus, Fallout Bonds was another idea scattered into the winds. Another case of nothing ever happens and a bunch of ideas of varying quality smashing into each other. Hey, I still like the Reborn faction. That was a good idea, because modern Fallout keeps on forgetting that FEV does more than just make super mutants. Harold. Well, that'd be the end of the story and cut the outro here, but after the whole Leo schism, Roy did take the mantle of Bonds, and after the whole mess I got myself into. Anyways, he just scrapped the whole story thing together to make a more original post-apocalyptic story. He's calling it Silent Winds Camino, and here's a little preview of it just as a treat. The light of man left to embers and smoke, only to occasionally spark and set alight the coals that originally held the roaring inferno. It consumed the land like an engine stalled and seized it. We rise from the ashes and replace what has broken, changed but remained the same, like the sands that move across the deserts. As the sand says, stick to the boots of those who wage battles and inflict death upon brothers and sisters of the lands they inhabited. A time before, war. War never changes. Be it to conquer, to strive, to gain or survive, or even merely project power. Man has been in an endless cycle of crawling suicide with only brief human anomalies. In this world, maybe in the last few seconds of existence, we can all stand back up. After all, once another go around, it can't get any worse. Well, that's all you're gonna get for now. We don't want to spoil everything, but we do have a problem. We only got like 2 artists doing shit right now. Me and my good bud Ophois, who you commonly see in the comment section of these videos. By the way, go follow his Twitter. He's a great artist, but we both have pretty busy jobs, so yeah, I'm gonna have to beg here for a bit. The boys are looking for more artists that can draw for the comic, panels, apocalyptic themes, etc. But by the way, more than just Fallout, this is gonna be its own original thing. My DMs are open on Twitter if you're interested, and I'll be acting as a relay for Roy. Just don't be surprised if we see your page is full of nothing but Gooner art and you get ghosted, because there already was an incident where a person with an account full of nothing but shark furry goon slop asked about Fallout Bonds, and we just all got red flags. Penis! Well, that's about it for this passion project of a video, so we're gonna end it here for now. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. If you hate this video, leave a dislike. I've been SF1232, and truly, the real Bonds were the friends we made along the way.
Shut up, faggot!
Next time on Sigma Mark 1232.
Amazing digital circus!
This is awful!